We're starting now. Okay, now, Lindsay, thank you for letting me come to your space. We're socially distanced and we're going to talk about thermoplastics with the group today because we know you're not allowed to come to our school. So would you like to run through the different thermoplastics that we're going to look at today, show and talk about a little bit of what they can do, and then we'll stop this video and we'll do some other little separate ones showing the skills required.
Yeah, no problems. So there are a few different types of thermoplastics. One of them is this one here, which is called Foss shape, which sort of looks like a wadding felt type material. And it starts off like that. And when you use heat on it, which you do with all the thermoplastics, that's what they are, you can change the properties of it. And so you can block shapes with the Foss shape.
So it starts off looking like felt and it ends up looking like a shell. It goes to being a shell, and depending on the thickness, there's 300?
Yeah, so there are three different types of Foss shape. There's Foss shape 300, 400 and 600. And the numbers just refer to the weight. It's like in grams per square metre. So 600 is 600 grams per square metre. So it just means that it's thicker than the 300, for example. And why that makes a difference is because when you heat it and put it into a shape, the 600 is thicker and therefore stronger. So if you're blocking a foundation for leather, then you would probably use 600. But if you were just using some silk, then maybe 300 would be okay. And there's one that's black, which is the 400. So that's in between the 300 and 600 and just happens to be black. But they're all the same fibre, just a different colour.
Gorgeous.
So there are those, and they're sort of in one group because once you heat them and you put them into a shape, there's nothing much you can do from then on, whereas the others you can. So the next type is one called Warbler, and it's also similar to a Wonderflex, which is one that I don't really sell much, but Warbler comes in white or in this sort of brown colour, and it is one that you can heat up and it'll go soft, sort of a little bit like chewing gum, and you can put it into a shape and it gets quite sticky, so you can stick it to itself and make all sorts of shapes and pull it apart and roll it up in a ball or whatever you want with it. So you could use it for making trims. There's a little flower that we've made petals out of the Warbler.
And that's been spray painted subsequently, so you don't have to cover it with fabric or anything. So that's that one. And it will fuse to, I mean, I've used it with leather on either side, and I've been able to sculpt that leather in ways that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
Yeah, so when you heat them, they do get sticky. So yes, as Serena said, you can iron a fabric to it or anything really. It'll stick to anything that's a bit porous. So that's the other thing when you're heating it up. You kind of need a Teflon sheet or something to stop it sticking to whatever you don't want it to
And with the heating up, the really good way to do it is using a heat gun, yes?
Yeah, so a heat gun, you can use anything that'll get it hot, but more convenient is the heat gun. I often use them as steam iron as well.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
so
definitely.
It just depends what you've got on hand, but you don't have to have anything fancy to heat it. You can heat it in really hot water too if you've... But I'm sure you would all have an iron or something at least that you can use. So that's those ones. Then the next type that I want to show you is this one, which is called Cobra Cast.
Here's an example of something you've done with Cobra Cast, right?
Yeah, so this hat's made of Cobra Cast, and the Cobra Cast is sandwiched between two layers of fabric. So for this example, you can see this brim is very thin and remains a little bit flexible, but still it will hold a shape. The crown is also made of this as well. And the beauty of this thermoplastic is it's quite flexible and stretchy. It's got a mesh on the inside of it. It's very similar to yeah, there's a piece that was already stretched. There we go. It's very similar to blocking net if you've used that. So if you can see on that, it's got a sort of honeycomb pattern that's been stretched out. So if you're looking to make a bit more of an intricate shape when you're blocking a foundation in a thermoplastic, this is a really good one as well. And the beauty of it, perhaps over Foss shape, is that once you heat this one up and you don't like it, you can go back and reheat it and melt it down again and change the shape. So that's one advantage. The other is that you can iron fabric on it as well.
Yeah, as you
And
can see with this, you've got it ironed
yeah,
on that
the
side
brim.
and you've got it ironed on that side. So you haven't had to dither around with lots of interfacings
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And it's a pretty, it's pretty smooth and schmick sort of result you've got there.
Yeah, it's a light weight as well.
Yeah.
The crown on this one, I actually blocked the thermoplastic and then blocked the fabric on top and pressed it onto it. So, yeah, that's the sort of thing you can do. This is the one I also did with the cobra cast, and that's 2 layers of fabric blocked onto a shape like this.
Yeah. So
And
it's,
then once I take that off the block, that's the shape.
that's
already
quite good
done.
for a quick hat then, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Now, also, finally, I'd like you to talk about the Cristoform, which you've got little samples here and more here. There, that's a
So
clear
it's,
plastic. It looks like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's totally transparent. This one's got a bit of a plastic film on it, so it's even more clear than that. And it's quite thin, and you can. It's really good for making flowers
you can see
and
this.
trims out of it.
And
like these
again,
ones
that,
I've made.
once you've got that one doesn't have any colour on it at all, or a little bit on
Yeah.
the edges. But then you can spray paint it using the Design Master sprays, and you can get some really quite elaborate designs
Effects on it, yeah.
once you've got the hang of it.
Yeah, so these are all spray painted except for that one, which is
Been
dyed.
dyed?
It's
Yeah.
been dyed with a synthetic dye. But when you spray paint them, you can't see through it, of course,
Yeah.
but it gives you a really shiny effect in any sort of colour that you want. So
Yeah, and the spray
kind of
paint
cool.
goes on the back of the petal, so you can
Yeah.
see the back. It's got the paint, and the front is quite shiny, like the material is. Okay, so we're going to stop here, and then we're going
that's all the
to
types, yeah.
start looking at techniques.